I wanted to kind of get into, I usually do like setup spotlights, but since you're a filmer, I kind of wanted to nerd out on film gear for a little bit and maybe some tips if you have any for someone that's looking to film downhill.
Totally. Yeah.
So what are you running? What's your setup right now?
Well, I'll go back to the start of I started on like a lot of people did. I think one of my first DSLR was like a Rebel T3i, a little Canon, super classic camera, and eventually like realized like I got to get to full frame, got to get a wide angle lens, and moved to the Canon 6D with the Rokinon like 14 millimeter, which is like a nice sweet spot, right? Like you don't want to get too deep into fisheyes with downhill. You can pull out an 8 millimeter and make a 30-mile-an-hour road look like 60, and that's cool and it has its place. But I kind of always like that little bit more realistic perspective, not putting it like under the bumper, but more on the front hood or front of the car, and having like a pretty relatively realistic gauge of speed. So I was on like that Canon for like 6 years, and that was great. But then like the mirrorless cameras entered the market probably 2016, 2017. We started seeing more of them, and I got my first mirrorless camera, which I'm still running. It's a Sony A7 III. I got that in like 2017. And so, I mean, Canon, Nikon, and Sony all have a mirrorless line now. It's like really, really whatever you enjoy in terms of like your color science. Like I love the Canon colors. Like that's been my biggest like gripe with Sony is like the greens and the blues are a little strange. Canon's colors are great. Nikon too. But yeah, I mean, really at the end of the day is like getting into like filming skateboarding. I mean, you really kind of want to identify like what you're going for off the bat. Like if you're just trying to film follow runs and you're never going to be on the side of the road with a tripod or a gimbal, which costs more money, it's like, you should get a body and a variable wide angle lens or something, and a nice microphone. Like there's no reason to like buy shit you don't need. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's like you really just want to focus on your dynamic range. Like we're skating these roads that have shadows, tree coverage. And so prior to mirrorless cameras, people, myself included, were shooting on these DSLRs, and the shit coming out of the camera is kind of muddy. It's already contrasted. It's already saturated. And there's only so much you can do with that. But we're in the day and age now. You shoot a fucking log, like, style, camera setting on these mirrorless cameras, and you're getting full dynamic range. It's coming out looking gray. It looks like shit, but that's where you go into the studio and give it life. So I guess my only tip for anyone like getting into it is like, just kind of dig a little deeper off the rip, like understand how to make a good exposure, focus on your audio, and then just like really make a point to shoot stuff flat, neutral, high dynamic range, and give it life in post-production. Because like the worst thing is when you're watching like a run or something and it's just like blown the fuck out, no information. It's just a buzzkill.
Especially filming in North Carolina, it's like the green tunnel effect.
Oh, yeah.
You're in perfect sunlight, and then you go through a corner and it's dark, and then you come back out and it's like just blows out.
100%. And you gotta like work with your ND filters and your auto ISO, and it really just takes experimenting. And I mean, I'm still doing that. I'm still experimenting and learning every day. So not much to say there other than like experiment. And, if you're like, if you're just getting into filming this, that, and another, like go out for a day and do some test runs, put the camera on a car and drive a road and see what the light and your settings look like. You don't have to be filming anyone. Like just go experience, experiment, but, I don't know. I got big into the gimbals. Like I built like a small gimbal when I was young, just like try to make a weighted, like kind of offset gimbal off YouTube, like to counterbalance my camera. And I made like those PVC pipes, camera sliders and shit like that. And I think that stuff goes a long way. Like you don't got to spend a shit ton of money like on things like, you can make do, but if you're like, just like getting into it, like follow filming is probably not the first thing you're going to do. So focus on like good composition, good audio. And if you're on the side of the road, working with your tripod or gimbal. But
I like those side shots. I like, even like in Cam's video, just looking at a corner and saying, like, how can I make this corner look like the way I'm seeing it with my eyes? Like,
Correct, yeah.
It's cool to see the steepness of a corner, or, you know, maybe hiking up into a spot, or trudging through some poison ivy to get a shot.
Oh yeah,
you know,
dude. Absolutely.
you know, it might be worth it. So